My name is Daniel Moore, and for most of my life I believed the ocean was honest. Dangerous, yes, but predictable. Storms followed pressure changes, currents followed the moon, and a compass, no matter how old, always told the truth. That belief held steady for 37 years, until the sea decided to lie. My wife Elena Moore stood beside me on the deck of our mini-yacht, the Blue Heron, watching the horizon with that familiar mix of calm and curiosity that had first made me fall in love with her. We had planned this journey carefully. It was meant to be slow, safe, almost boring. Coastal sailing, warm water, known routes, nothing heroic. Just two people escaping routine, not reality. The first 8 days were flawless, too flawless. On the 9th morning, I woke to silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the hollow kind. The absence of waves slapping the hull, the absence of wind in the sails. When I stepped outside, the sea lay flat as polished stone. The sky was cloudless, painfully blue, yet something in the air felt wrong, like a held breath. Then the compass began to spin. At first, I thought it was a mechanical fault. I tapped the glass, reset the mount. The needle kept circling faster and faster until it stopped entirely, pointing nowhere. At the same moment, the GPS screen flickered, froze, and went black. "Daniel," Elena said quietly, "look." The horizon was bending, not disappearing into fog or haze, bending as if the line between sea and sky had softened. Beneath us the water darkened, not with depth but with shadow, as though something vast moved below the surface. A slow swell lifted the yacht without warning, gentle but unstoppable. There was no storm, no wind. Yet the Blue Heron began to drift forward. I fought the wheel, muscles straining, trying to turn us back toward what should have been west. Elena held onto the rail, shouting directions that meant nothing anymore. North and south had lost their meaning. Time stretched unnaturally, seconds dragging into minutes, minutes into something heavier. Then, just as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. Silence. The sea flattened, the pressure vanished, and ahead of us rose an island that should not exist. Dark stone cliffs surged straight from the water, threaded with faint blue light that pulsed like veins beneath skin. Waterfalls flowed upward, climbing rock before dissolving into low-hanging clouds. The air shimmered, as if reality itself hesitated there. "It's not on any map," Elena whispered. I checked again, hands shaking. She was right, and deep inside my chest I felt the terrifying certainty of a truth I wasn't ready to understand. We had not discovered this island. It had chosen us. We approached the island slowly, not because I chose to, but because speed itself seemed unwilling to exist there. The engine responded with a restrained hum, as if some unseen hand was easing it back. Even the water resisted us, not with force, but with intention. As we entered a narrow inlet between the cliffs, the sea beneath us began to glow. Soft, turquoise light pulsed below the hull, revealing shapes far too geometric to be natural. Roads, terraces, towers stretching downward into the deep, layered like a city turned inside out. "This isn't just an island," Elena whispered. The harbor felt carved rather than formed. When we dropped anchor, the air shifted. It was denser, cleaner, charged in a way I couldn't explain. Every breath filled my lungs too easily. We stepped onto the shore. The sand shimmered like crushed crystal, yet remained soft. Each step left no footprint. The surface smoothed itself instantly, as though it refused to remember us. Ahead, beyond pale stone paths and luminous vegetation, rose a city. Alive. Figures emerged from the city and approached calmly. One stepped forward, tall, with faint, silver-blue markings tracing his temples. "My name is Orin," he said. "You are safe here." "Where are we?" Elena asked. "You stand on Atlantis," Orin replied. "A civilization your world remembers only as myth." Orin guided us into the city. As we crossed the threshold, I felt a gentle pressure pass through my body, warm, precise, intentional. "Your physiology is being synchronized," he explained. The streets were alive, but unhurried. Children played near streams of light. Elderly citizens walked upright and strong. There were no guards, no visible weapons. Order simply existed. We were given a place to stay, walls unfolding like petals as we approached. Later we met Lyra, a historian. She led us to the archive, hovering crystalline structures that stored lived memory. When I touched one, visions flooded my mind. Glowing oceans, shifting continents, Atlantis choosing isolation over domination. "You left us," I said. "We stepped aside," Lyra answered. "Your world was not ready. Time behaved differently in Atlantis. There were no clocks, only cycles. Elena adapted quickly, working with Lyra, questioning, creating. I remained cautious. One cycle, Orin walked with me along terraces overlooking submerged city layers. "Our world would weaponize this," I said. "Yes," he replied, out of desperation. We were summoned to the council. "You will choose," Orin said. "Return and forget, or remain and sever all ties." That night, Elena chose to stay. I struggled. Atlantis waited. As days passed, I felt myself changing, healed, corrected. That frightened me. "What happens if someone stays too long?" I asked. "They stop missing the surface," Orin replied. At the memory wells, I felt centuries of restraint, survival through silence. Atlantis was asking whether humanity deserved saving. The final moment came quietly. The blue heron waited at the shore. "If you return," Orin said, "you will forget. If we stay," Elena said, "we become more than we were." I chose her. We turned away from the yacht. Atlantis accepted us. Life unfolded without urgency. Learning replaced ambition. Purpose replaced fear. Sometimes I look toward the horizon and mourn the world that will never know this place. But I do not regret the choice. Atlantis was once lost. Now it is found. And it is home. Staying in Atlantis did not mean immediate peace. The days after our decision felt heavier than those before it. Atlantis tested us not with trials, but with responsibility. Knowledge here carried weight. Elena worked with Lyra on probability models of Earth's future. I joined exploration teams, descending into sealed districts where Atlantis stored its own mistakes, systems abandoned not for danger, but for wisdom. Atlantis was not utopia. It was discipline. At night, memories of my old life returned with painful clarity. Atlantis did not erase grief. It allowed it. From the veil, I watched the island bend reality itself, persuading the world to look away. Atlantis was waiting, not hiding. The longer I lived in Atlantis, the clearer one truth became. Knowledge was not power. It was weight. Atlantis preserved humanity's chance to mature without dependency. It could be revealed at any moment, and chose not to be. I realized then that we were not living in Atlantis. We were protecting its silence, and in doing so, we were protecting a future that might never thank us. Living in Atlantis reshaped my understanding of what survival truly meant. On the surface, survival was loud. Cities expanding, resources extracted, progress measured by speed and dominance. Here, survival was quiet. It was the deliberate act of not crossing certain lines, of choosing restraint when conquest was possible. That quiet was heavier than any storm I had ever faced at sea. Over time, I was entrusted with more than observation. Oren introduced me to the continuum chambers, spaces where centuries of decisions were simulated. I watched timelines where Atlantis intervened openly. Each ended in dependence and collapse. Because growth cannot be given, Oren said, it must be chosen. Elena learned that saving everyone was impossible. Compassion had limits. There were nights when silence felt like guilt. I asked Lyra if she doubted their choice. Every cycle, she answered. Doubt keeps us honest. At the Veil's core, I understood humanity was not blind. It was uninterested. We were not citizens. We were witnesses. Years passed, loss softened, purpose replaced regret. Atlantis did not exist to save the world. It existed to prove restraint was possible. We gave up our place in history. In return, we gained perspective beyond it. Atlantis was never meant to be found. It was meant to be earned. The years that followed were not marked by calendars or anniversaries. Atlantis did not measure time the way the surface world did. Time here was felt through change, through understanding earned, through responsibilities accepted, through the slow reshaping of who I was. At first, I feared losing myself. I feared waking one day unable to remember rain on asphalt or crowded harbors. Atlantis allowed memory to fade naturally. Forgetting was not the danger. Clinging was. Elena expanded her work into cultural memory, helping Atlantis understand human trauma and repetition. She became a translator of fragility. I explored deeper historical layers, halls where power had once been dismantled willingly. Atlantis archived its past instead of glorifying it. That mattered. I saw records of those who had once left Atlantis carrying fragments of truth. Most struggled, isolated by awareness. Love here was not indulgence. It was anchoring. There were moments when restraint felt like cowardice. Oren reminded me intervention changed outcomes, but wisdom changed trajectories. Watching Earth from beyond the veil, I felt protective, not of its success, but of its right to fail. Atlantis reframed our world. We were no longer part of history's momentum. We were its quiet counterweight. Atlantis was not lost. It was waiting, and we waited with it.